I would caution you though that they're probably not a good fit. How to reorganize your team. You're gonna need less middle-level managers. Probably need to let that person move on. One big area that we can't dance around is as you're adopting AI, you really don't need a big team to kick ass here. The typical manager to individual contributor ratio is gonna go from like the 1 to 8 that you've seen in the past and may even have today to closer to like 1 to 15, 16, because we're automating a lot of that, right? We're automating status updates, we're automating coordination and dashboards and all these different pieces of the puzzle that the middle manager used to have to do a lot of nudging, that can be automated, that type of stuff. You're no longer paying people to chase updates, to send reminders. The software is gonna do that, like Superhuman, for example. It's gonna handle that nudge for you. Wonderful example is a healthcare startup was using project managers to work between, sales, marketing, product, these different departments, and they had 3 PMs, one for each department, and then they're cross-coordinating between the departments. And what they were able to do was actually take that down to 1 PM, project manager, because they no longer needed as much coordination and were really just able to automate a lot of those pieces of the puzzle. So they added the cost of, Notion AI, but they saved $180K by not having those additional 2 team members. So it ends up being this huge swing by replacing people with these softwares. And I know we're all, nervous about that, but I think you have to look at it for certain roles if you're gonna compete in today's environment. So what roles should you consider phasing out? Well, we kind of touched on it, but a project coordinator is a really good fit to be automated. They're doing things like nudging people, they're tracking tasks, tracking how much people are working on different projects, like all of this type of stuff. Could very much be automated by AI. It can do a faster job, a better job, and then it also can surface blockers and progress throughout that process as well. Another one is those middle managers that I touched on. Now, these folks that don't actually directly own outcomes, those are the ones that you want to look at, those types of middle managers. I personally don't do that. If I have a sales manager, for instance, they have 80% of the quota of the rest of their team. So, a normal rep would have 100% quota, right? And then the manager is gonna have 80% as much of a quota as that sales rep. That's because I want them producing as well. They need to be in the day-to-day to really manage their team well and to lead from the front, lead by example. So I think about that in the same way for these roles. If you do have anybody that's just managing and they're not actually contributing or owning an outcome, those are the people that I would consider looking at because a lot of their job can be automated now. Another big one that I have coveted in the past is business analysts. I personally am not a wizard in Google Sheets or Excel, and I'm so impressed by what analysts are able to do and the trends that they're able to identify. But now that can be done with something like ChatGPT or Gemini right there in the documents. You can ask your questions and it's gonna tell you, these are the trends, or pull it straight from your CRM. Now there's AI within that as well. So I would really consider, do you actually need these business analysts at this point? While they do drive a lot of value, I would consider how do we drive that same value with automated reports, with having the person who is managing the outcome, let's say I'm a marketing associate, instead of outsourcing part of my job to the business analyst telling me how I'm doing, maybe I go and I do it myself because it's so easy now. I used to wait actual days for reporting out of my own systems from my own business analysts because the process took so long to actually pull these different pieces of data from different platforms, put them together, work out exactly what we were trying to see. It was such a laborious process, and now things like ChatGPT can actually just like literally handle it for you. BI software obviously is really great for stuff like that, but if you are still low tech or your systems don't all talk, a really easy thing you can do is just throw it all into ChatGPT and it will literally do the analysis for you. I've also had my fair share of operations managers, and they tend to do a lot of reporting, a lot of compliance, auditing, anything in that category, and they just really aren't as necessary anymore because so much of that can be automated. The biggest distinction I would make on this is, are they actually hands-on doing, some level of work? Similar to the mid-level manager delineation that I was making earlier. Are they actually owning an outcome, or are they just reporting on how things are going? If they're just reporting on how things are going, I don't think that that type of person is as necessary anymore. If I had to guess, you're already doing this one, but I'll hit it just in case. Tier 1 customer service. This can be easily triaged by a chatbot, by generative AI. It can easily take these simple questions and provide an answer to the customer. Now, where I think there is still a lot of value is those second and third level questions that may be more complex. The person needs a refund, there was an issue with shipping type stuff. But if they just want to know, how long does shipping take? We probably don't need a person on the other end answering that question, right? Believe me, I've had enormous customer success teams in the past, and they're some of my favorite people, but at the end of the day, they should be working on the hard stuff, not answering the same, what are the macros in this over and over and over. That can easily be answered with a chatbot. Another one that I love, but I have to include, is executive assistants. They're wonderful, and I am not aware of AI drinking wine with me yet, but an executive assistant will. But they're doing scheduling, they're doing follow-ups, they're drafting communications, party planning if you're my EA. That is all stuff that really can be automated at this point. And so just really thinking through, if you do need an EA, which I personally do love having one, maybe they don't need to be full-time. Maybe you don't need 24/7 on-call EA, and you can have a few hours a week to bring you coffee or drink wine with you or whatever it may be. A quick rule of thumb is, if the value that somebody brings is nudging other team members or scheduling or any sort of like coordination between team members, a lot of that can be handled directly by AI and automation at this point. So that's a good rule of thumb. It's not hard and fast. There are absolutely times when you need somebody coordinating a project or taking the lead on something, making sure everything's getting done on time if it's super urgent, or you have a hard date type thing. I do think there's still some value there. But that's kind of the rule that I would work within to help you start to look at these different roles. As you continue to adopt AI, what are some of the new roles that you should consider either hiring for or upskilling your current team to take on? So I know I talked a lot about managers in the previous section, but I do think strategic leadership still really matters. So what does that mean? That means people who are hiring folks, they're coaching, they're training, they are making tough decisions. Those kind of strategic thinkers, and people that actually have, an end goal that they're responsible for, those folks I think absolutely should be either kept on the team or made, hiring those folks or bringing them up within the ranks. I think that's really, really key. Another one I would consider is an AI project manager. So this person could be potentially upskilled from a regular project manager who, isn't deep in AI yet. I would caution you though that if they're not coming up to speed extremely quickly with it, that they're probably not a good fit for that role, and that you probably need to let that person move on and find a new person that actually would be a good fit for an AI specific project manager. This person is really, really responsible for AI in a lot of different facets. You can use something like Scribe to get all your SOPs or standard operating procedures in order. So basically what it does is it watches you go through the process of something and documents that process. That makes it a lot easier to automate, to implement AI for that process. So just a quick note, would recommend Scribe. I think it's a really good starting place, especially if you're not well documented in your company yet. So for example, I have a buddy who hired an AI PM, actually fractional. They didn't do full time, but they hired that for his SaaS company. And what he was able to do is implement OpenAI for chat responses for customer service. And they saw a 60% increase in CSAT scores just based on that change. So I do think it's worth it, even if it's a little bit extra work and pulling in someone from, outside the organization that can help you implement it. I definitely would recommend going that route of having like a really dedicated person who knows what they're doing with this. There's two more that I think could have different use cases depending on what you need. So one is a low-code engineer, and the other is an AI integration specialist. And they may have a lot of overlap depending on, kind of what you're using them for. So I'll go through both. I would probably say you just need one of these in most cases. So a low-code engineer is gonna write prompts, they're gonna test automations, they are gonna really just take the lead on the rollout in general. This is the most critical person to actually take the lead on implementation of workflows. So that's like N8N, that type of software, flow-wise. This is the key person that you need on your team to actually make that happen. An AI integration specialist, on the other hand, is more gonna connect something like OpenAI to your CRM. So they're just making that connection and not necessarily like automating full workflows and things like that. So this often can be covered by that low-code engineer, but really just think through like, what are you actually trying to accomplish with this person? Is it workflows? Is it, integrating different softwares to make sure that they're communicating? Overall, all of this can be covered by probably a full stack engineer, whether you already have one or you want to get one. But I would say that typically that person is almost overqualified. It's like paying a CMO to be posting to your social media. Like, it doesn't quite make sense when you think through what do you actually need to implement some of these AI tools. Most can be fractional or part-time to start. You really don't need a big team to kick ass here. Let AI handle the busy work and let your team do the leading. I'm also giving away my top 15 AI use cases for CEOs linked in the description. It's completely free. I want to help you become a power user of AI.